How's it going, guys? Josh here. So today I'm going to go through 6 tips to help you plan a dream gaming setup. Let's get into it. So tip number 1, budget. Now this is by far the most important factor to consider when it comes to planning a gaming setup. The last thing you want to do is start putting it all together and then realize by the time that you've bought that Razer keyboard and mouse combo, you're all out of money. So you need to be sensible and actually decide on a specific amount of money that you can reasonably save and spend on the entire setup, everything. Now after that, you can start creating what you'd call a subcategory budget, assigning that overall budget to different parts of the setup. So you might work out, hey, I can spend 1,000 on the PC, 100 on peripherals, 100 for the chair, and so on and so forth. And by doing that, it's going to allow you to choose the right products, because like I said, you don't want to overspend on something like a keyboard and mouse if you haven't really got the overall budget to do it. So always make sure you sit down and work out how much cash you've got to play with before you plan your setup. Let's move on. So tip number 2 is space. Now this is definitely the second most important thing to think about when planning a gaming setup, because it will literally determine what kind of setup you can do. For example, I used to have my old single monitor setup in a little alcove in the corner of my room. And despite wanting to do a triple monitor setup, I just couldn't because it wouldn't fit. Now fortunately, I was able to move stuff around in the room and ended up having my new setup on the longest wall. In my case, it is quite a large office, but you might be working with a smaller space. Maybe you're in your bedroom and you've got to fit your bed, your wardrobe and your setup. Depending on the size of the room, it might just not be possible to have something like a triple monitor setup. In which case you'd want to then plan for maybe an ultra wide or dual monitor setup instead, which are both still really cool, it's just about being realistic. Let's move on to tip number 3. So tip 3 is to choose the correct desk. Now the reason I think this is so important is because it literally acts as the basis for your entire setup. If your desk isn't big enough, it's going to be cramped, you're not going to be able to fit extra monitors in the future, you might end up having to put your PC on the floor, none of which are ideal. So make sure you go as big on your desk as you can possibly go. That way, A, it will be nice and roomy, and B, it's going to allow you a little bit of extra space to play with for future upgrades. Mine is a 2.5 meter countertop, and I still wish I had more space. I'd also definitely recommend getting some sort of drawers to support the desk rather than just table legs, because more storage is never a bad thing. You can store your controllers and other accessories in them when you're not using them. It just makes it easier to keep the desk area tidy and free of clutter. Moving on to tip number 4, let's talk about theme and style. Now generally speaking, if you're planning a gaming setup, you'll probably want a gaming theme. Now while they're not essential, things like racing chairs and RGB headsets look very at home in a gaming setup and contribute to that whole style. Maybe you want to take it a step further and create a Razer gaming setup where all your peripherals are made by Razer. Or maybe you want to go really crazy and make a setup themed around one of your favorite game or movie characters. Usually the best looking setups have a consistent style throughout. Again, this is going to link back to your budget, but it's good to think about these things during the planning process. That way, when you're ready to assemble the setup, everything should work out smoothly. Now, of course, that's not to say you can't have a minimalist looking gaming setup. Maybe you're just not a fan of adding RGB to everything. I mean, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want to add RGB to absolutely everything, but yeah. Tip number 5, color scheme. Now this one sort of links back to the previous tip, but again, a consistent color scheme can really help to tie everything together and make the whole setup stand out. Now achieving a color scheme can be as simple as adding some LED strips or lamps and tying in a nice wallpaper with it. You don't have to spend a fortune on this kind of stuff, but at least set aside some of your budget to account for it. Now, part of the benefit of thinking about color schemes during the planning process is that you can actually coordinate your entire setup with that color scheme, including your hardware. So say you go for the classic black and red theme, there's headphones out there that you can buy that are black and red. You can also get speakers that are black and red. NZXT make a black and red PC case. You get the idea. Now, while this can look absolutely epic, a word of warning. Make sure you really like the colour scheme you've chosen, because if you decide to go down the road of colour matching everything, including hardware, it's going to make it really expensive if in the future you decide you don't like it anymore. If you're not 100% sure what colour scheme you want, my advice would just be to go black and white with all your hardware. That way you can purely use RGB lighting and wallpapers to achieve the colour scheme you're after. I tend to change mine up quite regularly, so that's what I did, but I know people that have colour matched everything and it does look epic, so it's up to you. And finally, tip number 6, sketch out your setup on some paper or on a piece of software to see what it'll actually look like. It might sound silly, but it really helped me to visualize not only what it was going to look like, but also to help me see what sort of cable management I was going to have to do, where I could route cables, etc. Now I literally just use Microsoft Paint, the best sketch software out there as it's commonly known. And yeah, this was during the planning process, so it was before I even ordered the stuff for it. When it was built, the setup actually ended up pretty much identical to this. It's evolved quite a bit since then, but that's all part of the fun of it. So guys, I hope these tips helped you out. If they did, I would massively appreciate a like rating, and make sure to subscribe with the notification bell dinged. I try and do lots of videos like this. I've got a bunch of awesome cheap gaming gear reviews coming up very soon as well, so make sure you're subscribed. If you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, guys, I'll be glad to have you. Links to all the stuff in my setup will be in the description, by the way, so if you saw anything you like, it will be listed there. With that being said, thanks for watching today, guys. Have a great week. I'll catch you all in the next one.